Welcome back, everybody. So this video is all about finding a CrossFit gym, or box as they like to say, in the CrossFit industry. And I want to share that with you, that experience of finding a CrossFit box that's going to be the best for you. So I've gone through by trial and error, unfortunately for me. I've done all the hard work of figuring out, okay, what makes a good box as opposed to a bad box, and how do I determine the two, and how do I find the best one. So that's what this video is all about. I'm going to go through all the details step by step in a prioritized approach, something for you to look at so you can then have a checklist and you don't have to go through all the pain that I did, and you can very quickly determine which one's going to be the best for you. Okay, so let's get started. So first, before we get into all the details of what makes a good CrossFit gym or box as opposed to a bad one, why would you want to join CrossFit? So just a really quick introduction into my story. I really respect the idea of functional exercise. So for what I do, I need to be functional. So that was very attractive to me. And then I also like the idea of competing at a global level. That's kind of an interesting idea as well. I'm not really into getting huge muscles. That's not something that's really attractive to me. I think having the blend of both cardio and endurance with the strength to be able to do things throughout your life, whether that be a hike, moving some furniture, competing, whatever it might be that works for you, having that functional strength and endurance, I think is very cool. I'm also a big fan of Mark Twight, of his former Jim Jones, which is now his new Adventures nonprofit. I'm a big fan of him and everything that he kind of advocates for and his teachings. So if you haven't seen that yet, Google him and check out his YouTube videos and stuff like that. That'll be, I think, quite interesting for you as well. So that's why I like the idea of CrossFit. That's why I think it's worth looking at as opposed to just a regular gym or regular cardio class. I think that's kind of important to know. You probably are thinking something very similar. That's why you're on this journey. Also, I want to point out really quickly, why would I go to an external gym where I have to spend money as opposed to just doing this at home? Right now, my situation is I have a bit of a home gym over the whole COVID quarantine time period. I went out and bought a treadmill, which I think was a great investment for me. I use it almost every day. I went out and bought some barbells and dumbbells. I even recently purchased a chin-up bar, which is great. I can do that. I can't do what they call muscle-ups. I can only kind of go to chin height, and then there's a ceiling, which is kind of inconvenient, but it's better than nothing. So I have a little bit of stuff at home, but why I wanted to go outside of my home to exercise was really to get the programming, which I'm going to talk about, the class experience with other people, which I think is great, and then also access to all the additional equipment that I just don't have here. I don't have medicine balls. I don't have the rings. I don't have a large rack. I don't have all those things that they would offer you there that I just can't afford to buy. So also I don't have the room to put all those things, right? So unfortunately that's a limiter here as well. That's why I'm going out and looking for the best gym that I can find. All right, so that's kind of the foundation of why I'm doing this, and that'll give you some insights into my motivation. So now let's go through what I've discovered. Okay, the first and most important thing to me, of course, for finding a CrossFit gym was it needs to be relatively close to where I live. There are many great gyms out there. I live kind of in the suburbs, and I think some of the bigger and more popular gyms are probably more in the downtown core. I'm not going to drive for an hour to get to those. So really the amount of gyms in my vicinity was about 6. So I looked at about 6 CrossFit gyms. I also looked at some regular gyms thinking that, well, maybe I can do my own programming and save some money and go to those. I quickly eliminated that as an option simply because that was not going to work well for me. There's a lot of work that goes into the programming, and I also think participating with a group in that kind of CrossFit community has a lot of value. So I eliminated that as an option, and I only really focused on those 6 CrossFit gyms. The second thing that I looked at was the instructors. I looked at their websites. I looked at what level of CrossFit certification they had. Was it just level 1, or were there some people there that had level 2 or above? And what other experiences and training did they have? And I think that's also important if they've got some exposure to stuff outside of CrossFit? Or did they come right out of high school and get their certificate in level 1 and now they're teaching? That would not be as good, right? So there's a lot of good instructors out there at a very junior level, and there's a lot of bad ones out there at a very senior level. So I'm not saying that you can't have a good instructor at that level, but I was looking for a bit more maturity in the program at the gym if possible. For the instructors, you can take a look at their websites and you can usually get quite a bit of information. The next step that I did was I visited all of these gyms and I asked to watch a class. And some of the gyms were a little bit reluctant to let me actually just watch. And I think that's a bit of a red flag. Eventually, I persisted and they let me watch the class, which is, I think, vital and very important for you to do because you learn a lot from just watching the class, things you'll never learn from just going to their website. And a big part of that includes their instructors and how their instructors perform, what it's like and what the culture is like, how they help people to learn, all of those things, which is really, really important. I went to some gyms and I was amazed at how good the instructors were, how interactive and personable they were, and how clear their instructions were, which is important. But then I went to other gyms and I was equally surprised at how bad they were, how they would kind of glare at the students, not really helping them. As a result, the students' form was terrible, which is bad. You don't want to sign up at a gym like that. You also have to know that the affiliates, the CrossFit affiliates, the gyms, the boxes, they don't really get a whole lot of governance from CrossFit Central. Basically, you pay your $3,000 and now you're an affiliate. So you're going to get all different levels of quality at these different gyms, and they're all going to be quite different. That was a surprise to me. I thought they would all be fairly consistent, but no, not at all. The workouts are different, the format is different, the environment is different, everything's different. Quality of instructors is different. So that was a big learning curve for me to understand that, oh, wait a minute, they're all different. And so just know that going in. And make sure you go there and watch the class, watch what the instructors are like, because those are the people that are going to be teaching you. And if they're lousy, that's not good and you've wasted your money. You're probably going to move on, cancel your membership, maybe never go back, maybe go to another gym. But regardless, it's going to be a waste of time for you. So that's really high up on my list, and I really encourage you to pay attention to that and look for instructors that are personable, that are people that you would like to work with, and that are really helpful. And look at the student's form. If the form is not good and they're letting that slide, that's not good. They should be interacting with the students and making sure that that form is improved over time and they're helping them with their growth and their development within the CrossFit community. So watch out for that. The next priority for me really was affordability. CrossFit can be expensive when you compare it to just a normal gym. And that is, of course, something that's going to impact all of us. For me, it was hard to justify the additional cost when you look at the monthly cost, which is going to be at least double your normal gym roughly, maybe even 3 or 4 times as much, depending on what your gym price is now. Plus, you have what's called the on-ramp, where they train you in the Olympic lifts. And that's going to be anywhere from $100 to $500. It really varies, and the amount of time they put into that with you also really varies. So at the end of the day, it can be very costly. And also, it depends on the membership level that you get. So you could get unlimited, which gives you access to a whole bunch of different classes, allows you to go anytime you want whenever they do have classes, might allow you options to what they call open gym, where you can just go in and train and not be in a class exactly, which is a good opportunity to work on specific techniques that you might be not as good at, right? So good options there, good value if that is affordable. Quite often that package is the most expensive package, which is kind of irritating, but makes sense. But then they also have reduced packages as well, where you might be able to go only, say, 3 times a week or 2 times a week. They also quite often have punch cards that you can use, where you can buy a pack and you can go in. And that, to me, seems like the least valuable option, because it's very expensive per trip that way. So if you're going to go and do it, I think that looking at the price of the unlimited, or at least 3 times a week, maybe 2 times a week when you first start, with the option to be able to change that within a few months. I think that's probably what you want to look at. So when you compare prices, compare unlimited and compare the 2 or 3 days a week. I think that's going to be your best bet and where you want to focus. Of course, you may not want to go 5 times a week when you first start, but I think most people end up going at least 3 times a week. So I would look at that. The prices varied considerably. And I found that if I didn't sign up right away, sometimes those prices went down. So I'm just saying that might be an option. I think there's also an opportunity to get discount with certain factors. So if you are a first responder, for example, you might get a discount. If it's a certain time of the year, you might get a discount. And I think right now is an excellent opportunity for people to go and look at CrossFit, because right now, coming out of COVID, all the gyms have been really badly hit for the last year. So everybody's hungry for new customers. So I think if you go in and talk to them about, hey, can you give me a discount here, at least on the on-ramp side of things, I think you probably stand a pretty good chance of getting at least some sort of discount. And so, yeah, so look at price, compare price. Also, don't go strictly by price, of course. If it's super cheap, your quality may suffer. So consider that as well. Some of the other things that I looked at are not as obvious, but to me, pretty important. One of those things was parking. Where can I park? So CrossFit gyms typically, I find, tend to be in more kind of industrial areas, because unlike a gym, they're looking for an area that has a fairly high roof, a higher clearance, more like a, say, warehouse type of facility. It's going to cater to more of an industrial feel. That doesn't always have the most ideal parking situation. I've been to some where there's almost no parking, and that's not good, especially if you have a big class. So that's something I look at. What are the facilities like as far as parking? Is it safe? Am I in an area that's not going to be good? So things like that. So take a drive around the gym, make sure that there's ample parking and that it's not pay parking perhaps, or maybe it is and you're okay with that, but just know what you're getting into there for parking. Another big factor for me personally was if the gym was recognized by CrossFit and if they were sending people to compete at the CrossFit Games, or at least supporting and perhaps encouraging that of their members. So some gyms, they're all about the competition and they'll be pushing people to do it. I'm not necessarily looking for that. I am looking for a gym that has members that are competing, because what that tells me is that option is available, that they are actually good enough through their instruction and through their facility to be able to support that. Some gyms are pretty Mickey Mouse and they are not in a position to send their members to compete, and they don't support it. So that's kind of a shame. I think even if you're not competing, even if you have no interest in that right now, you may later, and if it is supported, then it's going to mean that the quality is at a certain level. So I think that's important. You can go to the CrossFit website and you can see how many people have submitted to the CrossFit Games, and you can see the results and things like that. So that was one of the things I looked at, was how many people from that gym have submitted their competition results to try to get to the CrossFit Games. I think that is a good indicator of quality. Another big factor is programming. And I think that that is something that's often overlooked by people that are new to CrossFit, that don't understand what programming is, or that every single gym is going to have different programming. So really spend some time, ask the owners or the manager of the gym about programming, and get a good understanding of where they get their programming from. A lot of this is outsourced to external centralized specialists that just do programming for a bunch of gyms. So that's important to know. And what does that look like? So what does a typical day look like? How do they determine what the workout of the day is, which is, they call it WOD, W-O-D. How do they know what that's going to look like? And how does it progress over time? Really good programming will have some logic to it. It'll progress in certain areas. So it may be focused on, let's say, strength. And it may start off more basic, more light, and progress you through this sequence of events that are going to allow you to build up that strength over time. It's not just some randomized thing where you go in and you're doing jumping jacks and skipping rope for some random reason, right? There's got to be some logic to it, some progression that allows your body to develop and progress. right? And is also interesting. So ask them where the programming comes from, ask them what the logic is behind the programming and what those cycles look like and how often those cycles change. You'll find that some gyms will do their own programming, which I think is challenging, but it could be good depending on the experience and the knowledge of the people doing the programming. I know CrossFit has just announced that they're going to now provide programming to the affiliates pretty soon. So that, of course, is going to change things in the industry. But I think right now, all the affiliates are doing it themselves in some form or fashion. So really ask about that because that is really important to the quality of your workout. The next big factor for me was the schedule of classes. So if they're running classes when you're working and you can't go, that is not going to be good for you. And I didn't really clue into that at first. I kind of thought, well, they're going to have classes when I can go, of course, in the morning or in the evening or on the weekends or something, but maybe not, right? They're all different. They all have different schedules. Most of them have a very early morning class. Most of them have a very late evening class, but not always. Some of them have no weekends. Some of them have limited weekends. Some of them have many classes on the weekends. So it's always a little bit different. So you really need to go in there and compare your schedule to their schedule to make sure that there's a match there. And of the few gyms that I've now narrowed it down to, I'm down to 2, I'm really looking at those schedules. And that's one of the big factors for me to make that final decision. So make sure that their schedule offers you opportunities and perhaps multiple windows to go, because we know life, right? Life happens. You're going to get tied up in this option of time. So you're going to have to flip over to that other secondary option. And you want to make sure that they have some flexibility there for you. The next big thing that I looked at was the facility. And this is why you need to actually drive to the facility, email the owners and say, hey, I need to come over, take a look, watch a class. When you're watching the class, look at several things. Look at how big is the space? What does the space kind of look like from a square foot volume perspective? Is there enough room for people to move around and do stuff without bumping into each other? That's probably the first thing I think about. What is the general feel for the environment? Is it worn down? Is it new? Is there stuff falling from the ceiling or, insulation and things falling apart? Or is it pretty good quality and well kept? Is it clean? So are they cleaning the floor and the equipment on a regular basis? What kind of equipment do they have? Do they have enough cardio equipment? Do they have enough rings? Do they have enough racks? Do they have enough space for people to use that equipment all at once, right? That is a huge thing. I've been to some gyms which are really small. They can only hold about 6 people. I've been to other gyms that are really big and can hold about 60 people. So take a look at how big is the class size. Once COVID is over, of course, more people are going to start going out. Those classes are going to grow. So make sure there's room for them to grow. I think that's really important. So I'm going to look at what kind of equipment they have, make sure they've got all the different things that I look for. Most of them are pretty well equipped, but perhaps they just don't have a lot of, say, assault bikes or things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of times for CrossFit, you'll go outside and run. Where do they go outside and run when they do that? Is it on the street or somewhere dangerous, or is it in a more pleasurable area that might have some shade from the blazing hot sun in the middle of the day, right? That's something I'll look at as well. What about the washrooms? Go to the washroom when you're there. Is it clean? Because you're paying a monthly fee that is not cheap. You should have a nice clean washroom when you're there because you're going to use it, right? What other services do they provide you? Is there a locker to lock up your stuff? Is there a safe place to put your wallet and your keys when you're doing the class? What does that look like? So there's many things you can look at for the facility, and I would really encourage you to kind of map that out. There was one facility that I was not too keen on. It was very good in almost every other way, except it was very dark. I could barely see from one side of the room to the other, and it was a gorgeous facility, really big, really nice, but too dark for me. I couldn't really see very well, and I don't know why. I think the lights were too high up in the ceiling. So that's very negative, and that was one of the reasons why I'm probably not going to sign up with that gym. Another very easy thing you can check is the gym's reputation. Go on Google Maps, type in the address of the location, see what people are saying on the Google reviews. That's a really quick way to do it. But then also just type in the name of the gym and reviews, and you'll find more reviews on other sites as well that talk about the gym. If there are any bad reviews, I find most of these gyms have no bad reviews, all positive, which is good. But if there are any, then you need to give that some attention, right? So what are they complaining about? Are they complaining about the instruction or the facility or the membership fees? Like, what is it? And then you need to take a look at that and take that with some seriousness, because usually when there's smoke, there's fire. So you want to check that out. The other thing that I look at very closely is the students. So when the students come into the class, are they happy, excited, or are they not that excited and look like they just want to get it done with? Do they say hello? Are they friendly? Are they happy, right? That's really what I'm looking at. If they're happy, then that kind of tells me that the gym is good. If they're not, that kind of tells me they're probably thinking about canceling their membership and they just want to get the hell out of there. So take a look at that. Look at their technique. So when they do a squat, are they doing it with proper technique? And I love looking at people doing squats because I think it's such a good indicator of quality, right? It's such a foundational exercise. So if they can't do a squat properly, then all bets are off, to me anyway, right? So I would look at that. Does the instructor provide them guidance and help them improve? If not, then deal's off, right? I went to one gym and I'll never forget it. The instructor was just glaring at the students and never smiled, never really gave very much guidance. And to me, that's a huge red flag. And there's no point in having a class session if the instructor is going to be like that. Not only not of any value because not interacting with the students in a positive way, but actually a negative value and really discouraging by just the scowl that I saw there, right? So that's totally uncalled for. And I think that really gives the industry a bad name if you have that sort of interaction. So look for that. Look for the happiness in the students and the quality of the movement and the exercise as well. So whenever you visit one of these gyms, it's inevitable that they will offer to sign you up. And I think that's to be expected. You are going there to take a look, you're expressing interest, and of course they would like to close the deal and have you as a member, right? That is the name of their game. That's their business. So that's not necessarily bad, but what I would look out for is if they provide you any high pressure sales techniques. One of the things that I will always do is I will tell them as soon as they start talking about signing up, I'll say, hey, I'm really liking what I'm seeing here today, but my rule is I never sign up on the same day. I'm going to go home and I'm going to think about it. I'm going to have questions for you. And once I get through that, then we can talk about signing up, but I'm not going to sign up today. And I really appreciate your time to go through this with me. Your gym looks great. Everything looks great, but I need some time to think about it. And that's my golden rule. And if they don't respect that, then that's the wrong gym for you. I've never had a problem with that. Even the ones that are a little bit pushy at first and say, hey, let's sign you up right now. Even those people are professional enough to realize that that's not going to be a good tactic to move forward with. And they always say, yeah, no problem. So I've been really pleasantly surprised by the whole CrossFit industry and their attitude towards that. It's like, as soon as I say that, no problem. That's been really good. I would suggest you do that. Take the time to think about it. Make sure you look at all your options before you sign up for any particular gym. And finally, one of the things that I would recommend is make sure you visit the gym and if possible, do a workout with them if you feel comfortable with that. I think that if they don't allow you to watch the workout, then something is wrong. That's a red flag, walk away. If they invite you to do a workout with them, I think that's an even higher level of professionalism and trust on their behalf. Because to me, there's going to be nothing better than actually getting in there and participating. And you're going to learn a lot about their coaches and their instruction if you're actually participating as well. So make sure you do that. Make sure you at least show up and watch a class, if not participate. So that concludes the list of things that I would look at as you determine which CrossFit gym is for you. There's a lot of details, a lot of variables to look at, and those are the core things that I recommend that have really helped me. I've narrowed down my search from about 6 to down to 2. One is further away, it's a bigger facility, it's got more classes, but the other one is a lot closer to my house, which I think is a big deal for me because if it's further away, that adds up over time. So that could discourage me from going more often. So closer to me seems a lot better. Slightly smaller facility, and less classes. So I don't have as many options, but they are at a time that I can go. So I'm leaning towards the one that's closer to me, but I'm going to go watch a class at both and then I'm going to make my decision, and then I'm going to start my on-ramp adventure with one of them. Stay tuned. I'll let you know how that goes. And if you have any questions about picking a gym, a CrossFit gym, or you have suggestions on things that I missed, please let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you and talk about any factors that are going to help people on this adventure, because it is really kind of difficult if you don't know what you're doing. So hopefully this helps you a little bit. So that's it for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Happy trails.